Hey everyone, Mr. Olshan here. Just wanted to give you a quick look at the 7 new updates that are available in Google Meet to assist you with your synchronous distance learning. So you may have noticed in the bottom left-hand corner of your Google Meet, you now have a blue shield icon with a lock called Host Controls. And when you click on Host Controls, you have the ability to control whether or not students can share their screen or send chat messages. You also have a quick access toggle button here, which basically forces people to ask to join your Google Meet. Have you ever been in a Google Meet with a student or students and you really didn't want to see what was happening in the background of that meet? Perhaps it was an awkward poster or a parent walking around in a bathrobe. Well, fortunately, now you don't have to see that, because if you go to the More Options section, you can turn on background blur. And when you turn on background blur, you no longer have to see what's happening in the background. I strongly encourage you to tell your students to use background blur as well. In the past, Google Meet didn't have a lot of options as far as what kind of view and layout you would see when you were in Google Meet. Luckily, that's been resolved with the update. If you click on More Options in the bottom right-hand corner and go to Change Layout, you now have the ability to set up a sidebar view or even a tiled view with up to 49 different people in your grid. So the Change Layout view, it's got 4 different options there, but a nice thing about it is that you no longer need a Google Chrome extension to use Grid. In fact, I'd highly recommend you delete any Google Chrome extensions that involve any kind of grid views and things like that now that it's fully integrated into Google Meet. One of our favorite Google Meet updates is the inclusion and integration of Jamboard Whiteboard into your Google Meet. You can access a Jamboard by going to More Options in the bottom right-hand corner and click on the Whiteboard Open a Jam button. Now, once you click on this, you're going to have the option to start a new whiteboard or to choose one from your drive. So if you already created a Jamboard, you can use a template. You can select that right from Drive, or you can click on Start a New Whiteboard. And as you'll see, it's going to open up a whiteboard for your students. And depending how many students you have, you can open that up and create as many as you'd like. And we're going to get into Jamboard in a little bit more detail soon, but ultimately this is an awesome place for students to collaborate. It can be a great place for formative assessments. It's a great place for teachers to just provide students with the opportunity to depict their understanding in a way where you can see it all in real time. When you create a Jamboard for your students through the More Options button, that Jamboard link is going to appear in the chat window. So when students go to the chat, there actually will be a link there that they can click directly on, and that will take them to the Jamboard. If you're new to Jamboard, keep in mind that students and teachers can always access Google Jam by going to Google and finding their waffle grid and just scrolling down until they find the Jamboard option. So another awesome Google Meet update is the inclusion of polls. Now, with polls, which you can find in the Activities tab, teachers are able to actually create polls ahead of time, and then as they're going through their class, they can choose to launch these polls for their students. So if I go to this poll right here and I click Launch, whenever I'm ready, if I decide I want to show the class the results, I can turn on this toggle, and it's going to update live as students respond to this poll. When I choose to end the poll, what's actually going to happen is I'm going to get an email from Google essentially that puts all of these poll questions into a table. So I have all of these results, and then I can share that table with my students. It'll put it into bar graphs and things like that as well, just for a better visual for students. And another Google update that we have in the Activities section is the inclusion of Q&As. So the Q&A posts are a little bit different than your typical chat feature. If you do decide to turn on Q&As for your students, students are able to ask questions during the class by clicking on this little button right here. And as a teacher, you're going to see all these questions populated just in this tab. And the nice thing about this is that you can sort these questions by oldest first, newest, but probably the best feature is popular. So students actually, when they pose a question, other students can upvote that question so that if there's an underlying concern or an underlying question that everybody's wondering the answer to, you can clearly see from the rest of your class that that question needs to be addressed. You can also go through those questions, and as you answer them in real time, you can check answered and it'll remove them. One of the coolest features with question and answers is that when the Google Meet ends, the teacher will actually receive an email with all of the unanswered questions. And then that way they can take a look at all those unanswered questions and they can respond to them accordingly, whether that's bringing them up in the next Google Meet or sending students emails or things like that. So one of the most anticipated new features of Google Meet is the inclusion of breakout rooms. And you can access breakout rooms from this new activities tab in the upper right-hand corner of your Google Meet. And breakout rooms allow you to put students into small groups to encourage better discussion when you are live streaming or if you're synchronously working with students in an online environment. You can have up to 100 rooms. So when you create your rooms, you'll have all your students' names, and you can either randomly shuffle those students into breakout rooms, or you can simply drag and drop students into particular breakout rooms. When you're ready and you have all the students in the room, you simply must go to the Create button, and breakout rooms are then running. And at any point as the educator, you can go to any of those rooms yourself to join in and see what's happening in those rooms. But if you have a group of 30 kids in a Google Meet, it's really hard to have those large group discussions. So by putting students in breakout rooms, you can have a lot more think, pair, share, and collaborative experiences for those students. And again, you can join all those rooms, and when you're ready, you can end all the breakout rooms, which will essentially send all students back to the main room where you're congregating. And remember, if you ever need any one-to-one support utilizing the tools in Google Meet, or if you want to collaborate on instructional practices for synchronous distance learning, please put in a tech request, and Shelly and I would be happy to support you. Thanks for watching.